They sold his farm at noon on a Thursday, or at least they tried to. Ethan Calloway stood on the courthouse steps, watching strangers raise numbered cards for land that still smelled like his grandfather's sweat. 42 acres of cornfield, one red barn, and a house that had stood through 6 tornadoes. The opening bid was $4,000, the amount the HOA claimed he owed in unpaid assessments. Except there had never been an assessment. Not in 75 years, not until the year after his grandfather died. The auctioneer's voice cracked through the summer air. "Do I hear 4,500? Ethan's jaw clenched. The same board that refused to fix the neighborhood's cracked road now had the gall to sell off his bloodline for less than the cost of a used tractor. He didn't yell or lunge. He just pressed record on his phone and whispered, "You're about to regret this." Harold Calloway had bought that farm in 1950, when Cedar Hollow was just pasture and gravel roads. He'd built the house himself, oak frame, tin roof, stubborn heart. Ethan grew up there, doing morning chores, hearing stories about soil and storms. His granddad used to say, "Land isn't money, it's memory. You don't sell memory." After Harold passed, Ethan kept the place running while teaching shop class in town, taxes paid and fences repaired, until the subdivision came. 5 years back, a developer bought the adjacent 300 acres and replatted it as Cedar Hollow Estates. Cookie-cutter homes, stone mailboxes, a shiny HOA charter promising order and beauty. Ethan's farm sat square in the middle like a stubborn relic. He wasn't part of the HOA, never signed a covenant, never paid dues. Didn't need to. His deed dated 1950, long before their paperwork existed. But to Trina Monroe, the HOA president, his weathered barn looked like bad publicity. She was the kind who talked about community image while parking her BMW on yellow lines. A former realtor with perfect hair and a smile like cold glass. At the first HOA barbecue, she'd said, "You really ought to consider selling. We could do so much with that land." Ethan just smiled and replied, "Ma'am, my grandfather built that barn before you were born." She didn't like that answer. 3 months later, the first letter came. Notice of violation. Excessive weed growth along shared boundary affecting property values. Fine, $150 per day until resolved. Shared boundary? Ethan laughed. The shared fence was his. He mowed, he trimmed, yet another notice arrived, followed by a bill for $2,700 in accumulated assessments. When he called the HOA office, Trina's assistant said, "You're on the Cedar Hollow parcel list," Ethan replied. "I never joined Cedar Hollow," the assistant said sweetly. "Our records say otherwise." That night, Ethan dug through his grandfather's old lockbox, tax receipts, warranty deed, a hand-drawn map. Everything proved his property line stopped 50 feet before Cedar Hollow began. So why was the HOA billing him? Here's what most people don't know. When a developer builds a subdivision beside older land, they often record overlapping plats. A lazy county clerk misses the overlap, and suddenly the HOA's digital map shows your property as theirs. Correcting it takes certified surveys and persistence. Ethan had both. Weeks later, an envelope marked "Final Notice" hit his mailbox. Balance due, $4,013.27. Failure to pay may result in lien or foreclosure. He drove to the county recorder's office. Dusty shelves, smell of copier toner. The clerk, Jeff, pulled up the subdivision file. "Funny," Jeff said. "Your parcel was re-entered last year. See here. Someone added an HOA covenant page." Ethan's stomach dropped. The signature read, "Harold Calloway," dated 6 months after his grandfather's death. Forgery. Jeff frowned. "You'd better get a lawyer, son." Enter Maria Delgado, small-town attorney with steel-rimmed glasses and zero patience for bullies. She read the documents twice, then said quietly, "This isn't a clerical error. It's a land grab." Trina and her board had filed an amended plat claiming Harold consented to HOA inclusion in exchange for maintenance benefits. Completely fake. Maria tapped the table. "We'll file an affidavit of property exemption tomorrow. Meanwhile, document everything." The next morning, Ethan woke to bulldozer noise near his west fence. Men in orange vests digging a trench, claiming they were installing irrigation for common grounds. He shouted, "This is private property!" The supervisor shrugged. "Talk to the HOA, we have a work order." By noon, 20 feet of his cornfield was gone. That night he took photos, drone footage, timestamps, every frame. Sent copies to Maria. Her reply, "Perfect. They just trespassed. Let them keep digging." What most people don't realize is that trespass by an HOA on non-member land violates civil boundaries and state trespass statutes. Once documented, each instance becomes cumulative evidence of willful encroachment. In court, 3 instances equal automatic damages. Ethan already had 4, but curiosity still gnawed. Why risk forgery over a small farm? He remembered his grandfather's stories of an old well, deep enough to hit an underground stream. Maybe water rights were worth something now. He searched county archives again, requesting environmental assessments. Buried in the files was a permit labeled Cedar Hollow Phase 3, Proposed Reservoir Expansion, with a geologic survey highlighting Calloway Aquifer Access. They wanted his groundwater. Back home, Ethan tore open the floor of his grandfather's workshop. Beneath a loose board lay a rusted metal tube. Inside was the original 1950 well rights deed, signed, sealed, and recorded. It proved Harold owned the water beneath all 42 acres, rights that couldn't be transferred without family consent. He took photos, scans, and notarized copies. Maria smiled when she saw them. "This," she said, "is your silver bullet." The next HOA meeting drew half the neighborhood. Ethan walked in carrying a binder thicker than a Bible. Trina sat at the head table, pearls gleaming under fluorescent light. When community comments opened, he said calmly, "You filed forged documents to include my farm in your HOA." She laughed. "That's a serious accusation." Ethan placed the well deed on the table. "And you tried to steal groundwater that's been in my family since 1950. Every survey, every permit, documented." Phones came out. Cameras flashed. Trina's smile faltered. Maria stepped forward. "For the record, we're filing civil and criminal complaints for forgery, trespass, and attempted theft of mineral rights." The room went silent. 2 weeks later, the HOA still tried to push their foreclosure auction, pretending the lawsuit didn't exist. That's the scene we opened with. Ethan on the courthouse steps, filming as they tried to sell what wasn't theirs. Maria arrived midway through, papers in hand, and handed the deputy clerk a temporary injunction stamped that morning. "Sale suspended pending investigation." The auctioneer's gavel froze mid-air. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Trina turned pale. Within days, county investigators uncovered everything. Forged plats, kickback emails, invoices for survey bonuses. Trina had promised the developer water access in exchange for a future job. She was arrested for fraud and forgery. 2 board members resigned overnight. The county voided all HOA claims over the Calloway property. Ethan used the settlement money, $480,000 in damages, to restore the barn and fund a scholarship for local kids studying agriculture. The farm thrived again, crops golden, well pumping clear water. Maria visited one evening, watching the sunset reflect off the silo. "Not bad for a shop teacher," she said. Ethan grinned. "Not bad for a small-town lawyer." A year later, Cedar Hollow Park, built on the land Trina tried to steal, opened to the public. Its plaque read, "In memory of Harold Calloway, who believed honesty runs deeper than any well." Ethan looked into the camera, calm and steady. What would you do if someone forged your family's land into an HOA while you weren't looking? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to HOA Things for more real-world stories where truth beats greed every time.